everyone. It's again. Welcome. Somebody give me a thumbs up on chat if you can hear me okay and see me okay. Fingers crossed, I'm waiting. Hi, Darwin. Hi, Brisbane, Central Coast. Hi, Sunshine Coast. Okay, can you guys hear me? Yay, you can hear me. I'm so happy. My very kind husband was trying to set me up in a different room tonight, and he worked all day really hard on this so that we could show the PowerPoint during my presentation right on the screen. But we had some internet issues kind of at the last minute, so we've been scrambling a bit. So very happy to see all these yeses on the screen. So I just wanted to say a quick welcome to everyone. And I need to pull up my PowerPoint quickly because in the scramble I didn't get it pulled up, but it'll just take a second here. So we did this on your Tuesday for the first time, and that was my first time live streaming ever in my life. This is my second time, and I'm a little less nervous tonight, which is kind of nice. So we're just going to go ahead and get started because we have an hour that we're going to go over. I'm going to talk about dealing with really the most difficult people during these really difficult times, which makes it a lot more difficult for all of us, doesn't it? But let's start with first an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I've been so comforted many times when I'm in Australia, when every time I'm introduced, and I've done a lot of speaking in all over Australia, your beautiful, beautiful country. And every time I'm introduced, before I'm introduced, is the acknowledgement of country and welcome to country. And it's sort of a comforting thing for me, and I'm sure it must be for all of you as well. So welcome to all of you. If you're Aboriginal, you're out on the islands, anywhere in Australia, across Tasmania, welcome. So happy you're here. And it's kind of amazing to me that we ended up having over 2,000 people sign up for this workshop. And that's why I was a little nervous about the technology. But I thought, well, maybe we'd have 100 people. And I thought, I'm not a celebrity. So they're not signing up to see me necessarily. And as I thought about it, I realized you're probably all struggling right now with the same thing the whole world's struggling with, this coronavirus crisis. And you guys have the additional, past trauma, very recent trauma of the fires. So working with people right now is going to be hard no matter what. Just because we're all a little anxious and stressed out. I know I am. I have been a little bit crabbier than normal. And I think we just sort of have this underlying anxiety. And so we'll talk about that tonight. First, I want to show you, though, I went through the house and looking for all of the gifts and things, a few things I picked up in Australia. So I set them up here in my office, and you can see a couple of pillows down there from, I got those out at Uluru in the gift shop. And of course, there's the picture of Uluru, and that came from Perth Family Law Pathways Network. You can see the little head down there on the other end of Uluru, and that's a flight attendant statue given to me by Brisbane FLPN in recognition of all the flights I've taken in Australia. And I think I've been there 9 times and been in about 49 or 50 cities. And of course, there's the Vegemite tea towel, the beautiful painting I bought in Alice Springs, and I have a lot, thousands of pictures and lots of warm, fond memories of all my Family Law Pathways Network friends in Australia. So anyway, I hope you were able to download the PDF of the PowerPoint. Like I said a minute ago, I really wanted to have it on the screen tonight for you, but my husband tried, he worked all day on it, but we just couldn't get the internet to work properly. So if you don't have it, go to highconflictinstitute.com/FLPN-follow-up. All right. And in there, you'll see a link for the PowerPoint, and you can download it and follow it. Okay. So let's get going. First is we're going to talk about the fear. We'll go through the agenda for a minute. Fear, and we're going to talk about getting unhooked, managing in-person interactions, and managing interactions in writing. And I think these are probably the most critical things for all of us right now is, since we're all a little bit more upset or have more anxiety right under the surface, it's those, we have to be super focused on those interactions that we have with people. And so we'll go through that, and then we'll talk about taking care of ourselves through this time, because it's really, really important. Especially if you're working with difficult people, they can, the interactions, the behaviors can wear you down. But we'll talk about tools and tips and, things that can give you structure as you're working with people during this time or any time. So, and throughout the whole hour, you can put questions in the chat. And then Shiv, who I will introduce you to in a while, she's our director in Australia, which we just started in Australia, in January. She will be grabbing those questions and feed them to me toward the end. So in the last 30 minutes, we'll go through those questions, and I'll take as many as you have, and we'll go as long as we have to. All right? All righty, so let's look at the first slide, and that is fear. Right, as I already said, we're dealing with fear as collectively in the whole world. And so it's just going to be kind of worse right now. And sorry, I'm trying to get my PowerPoint to comply here. So fear is just kind of underneath the surface with really difficult people. Fear is what drives their interactions with other people. Now, for the rest of the population, we're not really walking around in a fear mode. You might get afraid when you see a snake, or like, who's afraid of heights, right? Who out there is afraid of scorpions, like I have in my house here in Arizona, in the US. So I may be afraid of that scorpion, but I'm not going to let that drive my interactions with people. Maybe for a moment I might be, highly anxious, but not long term. But we'll see here tonight that, you're dealing with people, what we call this high conflict personality, and they have fear from not only just their underlying pattern of behavior, but they also now have this added layer of the pandemic fear, right? Like all of us. And on top of that is then the fear, maybe not the fear, but just the anxiety and the PTSD that's been created by the fires you've had in Australia. I was there in November, right when I think they were starting in Queensland, and a little bit maybe in Victoria. And I remember seeing how dry it was, and I've been watching the news and talking to a lot of you since then, and know what a really desperate situation it's been for all of you. So, you're working with, you have some of this maybe yourselves, and then you're working with people who have all of this going on. So on the next slide, we look at the different types of conflict that people have, what drives them, what their conflict type or style is. So a low conflict person for their actions. They have managed emotions, they behave pretty well. So they're low conflict. The medium conflict folks are a little less, not so great at problem solving as the low conflict, right? They blame a little, they might not take responsibility as much, have a harder time managing their emotions, things like that. But when we get to what we call this sort of high conflict personality, there are four main characteristics that seem to be their pattern of behavior that they just keep doing over and over and over again in their interactions with other people. So the 4 characteristics are: number 1, blame. It's all your fault. I'm the victim. It's all your fault. Unmanaged emotions, extreme behavior, and then all or nothing thinking, all good, all bad. Okay, so those are those 4 main characteristics. Now let's take a look on the next slide at the brain. And I won't take a lot of time here, but on the right, in the right hemisphere, sort of this reaction, I call it the react brain. You know, when we're in a fear state and we're feeling anxious, we react, right? As opposed to responding. So we've got this reactionary brain, and that right brain, it's taking a look at facial expressions, it's observing relationships, it thinks in pictures, it's generally kind of unconscious. We don't know it's working on our behalf when it is. And then if you look over on the other side at the left logic brain, you know, that's where we have all of our problem solving skills and, you know, systems and analysis and things like that. So we kind of equate those logic left brainers to, you know, accountants and engineers, and maybe the artists are more the creative right brain types. At least that's what, you know, they say. But in that right reaction brain is where we feel a lot of hurt, fear, and anger, right? Somebody just asked, are you supposed to be seeing slides that are mentioned? I couldn't get them to pop up on the screen, but they're at highconflictinstitute.com/FLPN-follow-up. And they're also on the YouTube screen in the little box under the title. There's a link to the PDF there as well. All right, sorry for that interruption, guys. Just didn't want him to mess out. All right, back to the right reactive brain. Hurt, fear, and anger, kind of over here in this right brain. Calm, contentment, and, you know, feeling peaceful more in the left brain. Then we will talk about the responsibilities that each hemisphere has. The right brain, that reactionary brain, it goes fast. The left brain goes slower. It does one thing at a time. Right brain, trying to escape the enemy, so it's all or nothing, right? Whereas the left brain, it's trying to find a lot of problems, a lot of solutions, a lot of options. And so it's flexible thinking. It also helps us manage our emotions and you know, behave. And you need all of this to have good relationships, right? Now, the right reactive brain, you know, that's more the unmanaged emotions, fight or flight behavior, and extreme behaviors to help us get out of the path of the lion, right? Fight or flight. And think again: hurt, anger, and fear, calm, peace, and contentment. All right. That comes in on the next slide. This little guy we have in the middle called the corpus callosum. And that I like to think of it sort of like a bridge or a superhighway. So we want a lot of flow, a lot of traffic going across that superhighway, going across that bridge in between the 2 hemispheres, so that we can make good decisions. When we have that interaction between both hemispheres, then you just are going to have a lot more access to all the things that can help you make good decisions. So when you're, you know, at home, you know, watching TV or sitting on your back porch looking at the sunset, you know, you might be feeling pretty good and there's a lot of flow going back and forth and you're feeling calm, right? Now what happens? Well, let's talk first about this other little guy. He's over here in our right brain, and he is called the amygdala. And I'm sure most of you have probably heard of the amygdala, but you probably haven't heard what I call the amygdala, which is Miggy. I've given him a name, or her, because it's just easier to say. It's kind of fun. So Miggy is over here in the right hemisphere, and Miggy's job, as many of you probably know, is to alert us to threats of danger, right? So are you my friend? Are you my enemy? Are you my friend? Are you my enemy? It's doing all this for us on our behalf without us even knowing. So what happens when it detects fear? It says, time to shut down the bridge in like a microsecond over to the left brain. Now let's think for a second what's over here in the left brain. That's the logical problem solving, calm, peace, contentment, right? And now you're stuck over here. So think a minute if you've ever been working with someone or just talking to someone and all of a sudden they seemed very upset and you didn't know why, like maybe there was tension in the room or someone just starts behaving badly or spewing out things and I don't even know what happened. What could be happening is that amygdala sensed something that it didn't like, some threat, and it said, "Oop, time to shut down the bridge," right? Got to go into all or nothing, fight or flight mode. So uh, um, Miggy has a very important job, but the problem on the next slide, you'll see a big red X, and when he shuts down that bridge, you can't get over there, and we start really talking to people, or we keep arguing with them as if they have access to their logic side of their brain, when in fact their right brain is just on fire, and it's just right. It's very hard when you're stuck in right reaction brain to think. So let's think about yourself. Just pause for a second and think about a time when you've been upset, highly anxious, afraid, just miserable or something, and you can't think. You're under stress. So all of us can feel this way when we're upset, when we're under pressure, right? That hemisphere, right hemisphere can, or maybe you can just shut down that bridge and stuck in right brain emotions. So it's kind of interesting. Lately, I've been studying a bit the polyvagal theory. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's POLYVAGAL, and it's really about. I equate it in very simple terms to feeling safe or unsafe. So in the polyvagal theory, you have ventrovagal from the waist up and dorsal vagal from the waist, or from the diaphragm down, I should say. And when we're feeling safe, we're in ventral vagal. Things are good. We can see well. We can hear well. Things are just kind of normal. We feel okay. There's a lot of flow going back and forth. But when you go into that dorsal vagal state, when Miggy says something's wrong, then you go into dorsal vagal and your stomach tightens up and things change. Your hearing changes even. There's lots of studies on this. It's all kind of interesting. But when it comes to dealing with people, really working with upset people, you want them in which one, vagal or dorsal? You want people in ventral vagal state, right? The safe state. So really, your job when you're working with people is to help people feel safe. And that happens when you keep that bridge open. So we don't want people feeling unsafe. Let's talk for a minute. I've gone to the page with the chart with core fears on it. And these are the fears that, remember when I mentioned a few minutes ago that there are some people who are really driven by this fear-based personality. I like to call it a fear-based operating system, actually. The first one is a fear of feeling inferior. So when these folks feel inferior, like they're just kind of going through life, and when they're around people, if they feel they feel inferior, they feel put down, they feel dissed, they have to get back to a safe state again. Because remember, when they're in a fear state, they're you just want to get out of it. Think of any fear state you've ever been in. You just want to be safe again. So their safe state might be to put someone else down, to be condescending, right? So it's just kind of this opposite thing, and it's sort of unlocks the mystery to why some people behave this way. The second fear is fear of feeling abandoned, sort of disconnected, and so they really, when they feel abandoned, whether it's real to you or not, they feel this way. And when they do, they have to get out of that fear state, and so they might try to be clingy, might be attaching, might blow up because it's not working for them. So there's a whole lot around that. But the third fear then is a fear of feeling ignored. And so they need to be the center of attention. And when they aren't, they can act poorly. The next is a fear of feeling dominated. So these folks really need to dominate and to feel okay and to feel like they're in that safe state. And then the fifth one is the fear of feeling betrayed. And these folks are just kind of feeling like there's always someone out to get them. There's a lot of conspiracy theories and things like that. So, you know, I could spend hours on this chart alone, but that's for another time. Just get the idea, I suppose, that, you know, if you can really grasp that some people do go through life like this, and the thing is, they don't know it, right? So if you don't know that you're behaving a certain way, and the way that I'm talking about is, you know, unmanaged emotions, blame, extreme behaviors, and all or nothing thinking. It all kind of goes back to those four things. When the bridge shuts down, those four things happen. And then there's this whole fear thing that they're going around with anyway. So altogether, you just realize you have to do something different with folks like this in order to really help them, right? And that's what we're helping professionals. We need to help people, you know, get from A to Z in your profession, right? If you're helping someone in a mediation, then your goal is to help them make decisions, right? So we'll talk about some ways we can help structure things like that so that they can make good decisions, okay? All right. And remember, put any questions you have in the chat along the way. So we have this spectrum of behavior when we talk about high conflict behaviors. And those, you know, those four things, all or nothing, blame, unmanaged emotions, and extreme behaviors, they also can really cause folks to be rigid and uncompromising, really have a lack of empathy, you know, have a hard time being reasonable. So reasonable behaviors are when we have a lot of flow going back and forth and we don't have sort of this fear-based operating system. And if you're following the PDF, you'll see that I have these two slides, and one is called the behavior spectrum, and it shows the behaviors from reasonable to difficult to high conflict, right? And then the next one, all I changed on the next slide is we call it the safety spectrum. And I think it helps us see things in a different way, right? So what it means is you become, think about this, the bridge manager, right? Or the MIGI manager. You're the safety manager. You are watching people as they flare up and get upset, get emotional, get angry, and you realize, okay, I've got to step back and do something different now. All right? We'll get to that. So what all this leads us to is an understanding that with really the most difficult people, the issue is not the issue, right? So what do we mean by that? The issue can be $1 billion, or it can be $1, or it can be you looked at me with an angry look on your face. Anything can be the issue. So the issue isn't the issue. The personality is the issue. This operating system is the issue. I really wanted to show this cool video on, it's like a 2-minute video right now. I wanted to be able to show it, but I can't since we don't have the PowerPoint up. But I did put it on the page that you were given the High Conflict Institute FLPN follow-up. It's called It's Not About the Male. You might have seen it before, but if you watch that video, you'll die laughing, number one, and number two, you'll really understand the issue's not the issue a whole lot better. Believe me, it's worth your time. Okay, so this complicated operating system, you know, these are folks that have, you know, it's been going on a long time. That's a chronic, lifelong pattern of behavior and operating. You might almost call it like a relationship disorder. So you might find people isolating or maybe fighting a lot, arguing, getting into trouble with law enforcement. It's developed into this fear-based operating system, but they don't know they have it. So, you have an Android phone, you have an iPhone, two different operating systems, but they have different inside. They look the same on the outside, right? But they operate a little differently, and you can't tell an Apple to be an Android or vice versa. All right. So what happens is because they have this fear-based operating system, they keep repeating the same failed strategies when it comes to relationships and dealing with people, right? And because we don't know that not everybody's the same when it comes to conflict, we keep repeating the same failed strategies as well. And I hope that makes sense. All of this to say we have to do something different. And this is really where we talk about finding the missing piece in conflict, is you have to understand this fear-based operating system so that you can do the opposite of what you do with everyone else. All right. So there are folks that are not bad. We have to be really clear about that. They're just different. It's like a teacher in an elementary school classroom. If you teach the same way to every student in the room, not every student learns the same way, but it doesn't make someone who learns differently bad. They're just different, and we just have to adapt and know how to work differently with them. As they react in relationships, we don't want to give them negative feedback, like arguing with them, over explaining to them, because you'll just keep people in that cycle of high conflict thinking, and you'll be in it as well. You probably, if you've worked with people anywhere, you've probably experienced this, where you just can't get anywhere, or you dread seeing this person come again, or walking in the door. Oh, I've got an appointment with that person again. It can be, those are the taxing people, and they don't need to be taxing. People are feeling safe when you are feeling safe. You trust people a little bit more, don't you? Well, that's what we want. We will need people who have a really difficult time trusting anyone, whether it be a background of trauma, of abuse. I mean, there's probably a lot that went on in that background, maybe some attachment that didn't happen. They didn't get the secure attachment they needed as an infant. And so they have a hard time feeling safe. So we have to have empathy for them, even if their behaviors are bad, difficult, and they can drain you and frustrate you, and you want to hit your head on the wall. I think if you can get your head wrapped around the fact that you just have to have empathy, that people don't choose to be this way. They didn't order it off of Amazon, right? So empathy is king. Let's talk for a second about the Webb method. I'm on a slide that says the Webb method, and it has a little green and blue chart. So the Webb method is for identifying when you might be dealing with someone like this. And so the W in Webb is for words. Now you're going to be listening to their words. What are people saying? Do they contain one of those four things? Remember, the all or nothing, the blame, the unmanaged emotions, words that are very blaming, attacking, personal attacks. When someone makes personal attacks, you usually have some high conflict behavior patterns there. I also listen for words like respect. I demand that you respect me. I felt disrespected. Now, I've probably said that before, and you might have too. But this seems to be a pattern over and over with them. It's kind of their default. They'll tell you what they're craving. What they're craving is what they're missing. I don't feel acknowledged. I just need to feel acknowledged. I just need to feel connected. I don't feel connected. I feel abandoned. I'm being ignored. You're ignoring me. They'll tell you, right? So listen. The next one of the E is for your emotions, right? I got a note here that the video and sound's frozen a couple times, but it's coming back. I hope it's not being a problem for you guys. I think my internet's a little bit spotty tonight, but we'll just keep doing our best. So emotions, do you feel, you got to pay attention to how you feel. If you're feeling danger, you're feeling a knot in your stomach, you feel like something's off, pay attention to those things, because you don't usually feel that way. You know, if you're around someone that's safe, that is, I shouldn't say safe, but you've probably been there, you know what I'm talking about. All right, we're getting a lot of thumbs up that it's working okay. Thanks, you guys. All right, then behaviors. Are the behaviors shocking? Are they extreme? Are they things that, like, this is the 90% rule. If they're doing something that 90% of people wouldn't do, there's probably some high conflict behavior and some patterns of behavior. So that means you have to do something different. And I used to, in my trainings, I used to say, you know, you've got to be prepared and watching so that you can put on your high conflict hat and adapt how you do things. And now I've learned to say, you know what, just go through life doing the things we're going to talk about here in the next few minutes with everyone, because they're calming techniques that work well for everyone, whether they have high conflict behaviors or not. So if you're prepared with this and you get to operating this way yourself in daily life, then you're a step ahead, right? And you won't be so hijacked if you run into something like this. All right, I took a long time on that part. Now let's go on to getting unhooked. This is for us, right? So now we've talked about this kind of this high conflict pattern of behavior. Now we need to talk about how we get hooked into this. And it's because emotions are contagious. And I've been hooked. I've been angry. I've said things I shouldn't say. That Miggy, when there's two Miggies in the room, they're communicating. They're kind of bouncing into each other. And I forgot to tell you, the Miggy's job is to pay attention to facial expression, tone of voice, and body language. And so that Miggy, when when your amygdala senses, it's paying attention to tone of voice, which I think is super, super important. It gets alerted, shuts down that bridge. That's why it shuts down the bridge. I forgot to tell you guys that. So we also have amygdalas, and it's doing the same job. So let's think about if you're in a meeting with someone and all of a sudden they're upset. Well, their Miggy might have given their bridge fake news about something you said, your body language, your facial expression. Maybe you were checking your watch, your phone, looking at a text message, ignoring, not paying attention. That triggered their fear. Their fear said, Miggy, shut down the bridge. Now they don't have logic. Now their face looks upset, or their voice gets escalated, and your amygdala says, ooh, problem. And then your bridge shuts down a little bit too. And now you don't have logic going on very well either. So now you see, emotions are contagious. So we have to get unhooked. And one of the ways we do this is to really understand, what kind of a conflict person you are, right? And then, kind of understand what kind of approach you need to take. So if you're a conflict avoider, right, you just want to evaporate into thin air when you feel conflict, when your amygdala, which is super powerful, when it goes off, you just want to get the heck out of the room. You might freeze up. You can't even say anything. You might be a people pleaser because of this. So what this does is just emboldens this kind of high conflict behaviored person, and you can get really hooked into that. If you take a more aggressive approach on the opposite end, where you're more of a fighter, and that's kind of more me, person engaged in the conflict, and you don't want that. So what we recommend is taking an assertive approach, and this really helps remaining unhooked. Okay, quick step. All right. So helping yourself get unhooked. A lot of times you'll feel this pull from this type of person, a really upset person, and you might feel influenced to take strong action on their behalf. You might be put in some ethical dilemmas, things like that. So you have to really stop, get unhooked, take a step back, and sit down and write out a list of things that, options about what to do about the situation. If something feels off, or if you feel confused, you're probably dealing with someone that might have high conflict behaviors. Now, sometimes it can be hard to tell because sometimes they always investigate when there's abundance of charm, or just even some humble charm. So anyway, when things feel a little bit off, or you like someone too much, or you dislike someone too much, or you're confused, write down a list of options about what you can do, and then ask yourself, am I thinking in all or nothing terms? Am I blaming them, thinking it's all their fault? Are my behaviors bad? Are they off? And so, writing the list is going to help calm you, because it's going to open your bridge over here and help you think more systematically and rationally about it. Okay? And forgive yourself for getting hooked. Okay? You just have to be real, because we're human and we get hooked sometimes. The amygdala is powerful. We all may have a little, junk in our background too. So you may get hooked more easily than someone else, but it's okay. We can all work on ourselves, get better. But if you get unhooked, do a lot of writing. Or if you get hooked, do a lot of writing. Okay, now I know I'm going really fast. We're going next on flipping the script, managing in-person interactions. So, you might be in your professional space at work, and so you're more prepared for dealing with some difficult behaviors, but you may go to the store and the store clerk or someone in line beside you is really, being obnoxious or behaving very badly, and you can get kind of triggered quickly or taken off guard. Either way, it's hard when you're in person to think, especially if your amygdala is fired up and your bridge is shut down, your left hemisphere. So get unhooked. So first you have to calm people, calm that right brain before you get them thinking with the left brain. And I see people getting into the same trouble when dealing with difficult people, because they're trying to get them to think before they get them calm. This is, if you don't learn anything else from this session, that's a good one, is calm them first before you get them thinking. When they flare up again, as they probably will, calm them again. So you can see there's a different approach here where you're paying attention to the waves, the roller coaster. And when people get upset or they, panic, withdraw, and all those unmanaged emotions, or trying to manipulate someone, then you've got to get them calm first. So let's talk about how to do that. We have what we think is kind of the magic secret sauce. And it's something you've probably heard in a workshop somewhere before. And it's to give empathy when someone's upset, which can be their behavior by giving them empathy, or validating it by giving them empathy. But when you understand that brain, you're giving them empathy so you can get that amygdala calmed down, get that right brain calmed down, open up the bridge. Empathy, attention, and respect. So we call it EAR, like the ear. Empathy, attention, respect. EAR. So which one do you use at which times? It really doesn't matter. You can use any of them, and it seems to be the combination of them that works really well. These are folks who respond well to empathy, attention, and respect because that's what they really are craving. It's what they need. And you're the one that has the ability to give that to them. That helps that right brain calm down. They feel safe once again, or safer. And when they feel safer, they can trust a little bit more. So you're working with a client, they're all upset. Use some empathy, attention, and respect. Use empathy all the time. It works pretty well. So you use it with your words. You don't respect me. I felt disrespected. You didn't return my call in 30 seconds after I left that voicemail. Hey, that's unfortunate. You know what? I can respect that situation. I use the words that they're craving. Now you don't have to, and you know what words or phrases work for you. But so these are words. We have to be super conscious of our tone of voice. Tone of voice, I think the amygdala is very hypersensitive in the most difficult people. Some of them, they really need to hear a calm tone of voice so that they don't get triggered. So you may have heard that you need to match level for level. When people escalate with their voice, that you should escalate and match them. You don't want to do that if you want to get anywhere, because you really need to calm the amygdala with a calm tone of voice. And then body language and facial expression. The amygdala is paying attention to that too. So you just be you. Smile. Be relaxed. Don't be checking your phone or your watch a lot, or being very distracted by a lot of other things, or turn your back, and just be aware, be cognizant. So some calming words. What are they? Think about the fear they have, or that they just have fear. They have anxiety, and what's going to work is some statement or some phrase like, how can I help you? I respect your efforts to gather all that paperwork that you brought in, stacks of it. I'll pay attention. I'll listen. Or just keeping your mouth shut is even okay. I guess those aren't words or statements, but let's figure this out. Tell me more. I hear what you're saying. I kind of see where you're coming from. I understand this can be frustrating. So, you guys know what words work for you, what phrases work for you. You just want to use them more when you see that people are upset. A calming tone of voice, going back to the fear, the amygdala, Miggy, he wants a calm tone of voice. So avoid escalating your volume, avoid using a very condescending tone of voice, or even slightly condescending. It can be hard sometimes because you just want to be a little snotty or spicy, but you want to avoid that. And really avoid being sarcastic or, exasperated and annoyed. Just keep it calm and, confident without being cocky or all-knowing. I hope that's making sense. A calming body and face. So you want to avoid a few things. And one of those would be smacking your forehead, right? Or, just like tapping your fingers or rolling your eyes. And, Mickey doesn't like that. Mickey's just going to get more upset. You want to make eye contact with people if it's culturally appropriate. If it's not, then don't do that. You have to be aware of who you're working with. Smile, just be pleasant. Kindness wins at the end of the day. All right. So a few little last minute tips on calming. So they're desperate for ear. They crave it. Ear is simple. It's structured. Someone put on here nodding as well. I agree. That's a really good one. Just nodding. Yeah. Yep. And it doesn't mean you agree with the content of what they're saying, but you're just calming that right brain. Calming. So next one. Thank you, David. You got to be honest with your ear because, they'll be able to sniff out when you're not being authentic. So just be authentic. And, you can find something to be empathetic about and just be honest. try to not interrupt and just, pay attention and listen. Now, there are some that, will go on and on and on and on and talk. And you'll think back to this workshop and go, well, that Megan lady told me not to interrupt. Well, there's a difference between interrupting and keeping boundaries, right? So you want to have, set limits around your meetings and how long you're going to meet with someone and and you might have to interrupt at that point. But you'll ask or advise in advance that you're going to do that. You might have to interrupt once in a while to keep things moving, to help people get to success. Calming with ear builds trust. All right, so remember, back to calm before think. So someone else says, I was told to relax my eyes and keep them soft, and it helps relax your whole face. I find it works for me. Yeah, I like it. Very good, Leslie. I might relax my eyes too much and they just close and I fall asleep. Just kidding. All right, so let's get into thinking. This skill is about stimulating thinking after calming the person. So when they're calm, they get over here, back across the bridge. You've opened that bridge up with your ear, empathy, attention, and respect. And now they're in left brain. Every intelligent people, a person, but maybe not used to in people skills, relationship skills, not used to problem solving. So you can kind of stimulate that by asking people questions. You don't want to be the one doing all the thinking. You want to be guiding their thinking, because when they're thinking, they're over here in left logic brain, right? Think about that. The longer your job becomes, just keep people thinking and thinking, because they default back over here to reactionary brain, and you want them over here. So you just calm and then get them thinking by asking questions. What options can you think of? What ideas do you have? Have you problem solved around this? What's worked for you in the past? Let's write down some things that, some options for you in the future. And you want the people to write lists of options, just like when we said a few minutes ago that it's good for you to write a list of options when you're feeling confused or you're not quite sure what you're dealing with. This is a great trick for people, is to write lists, have them write lists, because writing, it's eye-hand interaction. It's back and forth across the superhighway, that bridge. So that's a nice little trick. So thinking, calm people, then get them thinking. All right. I hope that makes sense. And as I said before, they're going to default back to reactionary a lot of times. So you just go back to ear to calm people. And then when they're calm, get them thinking more. And after a while, if you're working with someone over an extended time, maybe 2 or 3 meetings or something, or a full day mediation, the longer they get used to this, the more the guard comes down and the trust is built, and it's a lot easier to keep that flow going back and forth and keep people thinking and making decisions and problem solving. Okay, so we've gone through fear, getting unhooked, managing in-person interactions. So now let's move on to written interactions. So during this COVID crisis that we're going through right now, the fires you guys have been through, and then just regular difficult times and difficult people, when you're interacting with them in person, they're coming into your office, you use the ear for those interpersonal interactions. But when you get that email or the text or the social media post or, the group, like I'm on Nextdoor and people are just blowing up like crazy right now over ridiculous stuff. And you can always tell there's that one person that the issue is not the issue. And so I see people responding in the wrong way. And it's just because we're human and we think that everybody's will get insight. I guess I'd put it that way. I'm going to be able to give this person insight by some glorious statement that I write down. But it usually ends up, if you think about it, keeps them going and going. In divorce cases and co-parenting, you know, the emails, the text, just back and forth, just endless, endless, endless. We teach people how to use what we call a BIF response. Now, someone in Brisbane years ago said, hey, BIF means something different in Australia. And I said, okay. And they suggested that we call it SIF for short, informative, friendly, firm, instead of brief, informative, friendly, and firm. But we'd already kind of been trademarking it and stuff. So we kind of stuck with it. But you can call it SIF if you want to. So what is BIF? BIF is meant to, and this was developed by my co-founder at High Conflict Institute, Bill Eddy. He's a licensed clinical social worker and an attorney who has a brilliant mind, and he put all these pieces together about understanding this high conflict personality. And he's developed all these techniques that are the missing piece, really, in dealing with the most difficult people. And by the way, a little tip, you can use this on anyone, right? All of these techniques is just make your life easier all the way around. Okay, so brief, the B is for brief. Keep it short. When you get personal attacks, blame, usually these emails and texts are full of blame and personal attacks. And you get triggered, you get a little hooked. You might want to, you might be able to withhold a little bit and not go full blown, crazy on them and send the email or the text. But you might say some things in there that are just going to escalate the conflict. And a BIF response is intended to de-escalate or stop the conflict altogether, stop the exchange. Because what's happened is, think about the Miggy goes off, shuts down the bridge, stuck over here and bringing on fire. And now all of that needs to come out somewhere. And we have technology that makes it really fast and easy. Phone, computer, whatever, type, you're blankety blank, exclamation, all of that. So when you you might be tempted to be defensive when you've been blamed about something. You don't need to do that in this, because they got what was out, what they needed to get out, and now they've moved on because they were just feeling all that. And now it's on you, and you're like, and people lose sleep over this, and they spend hours and days trying to form a response and responding to every single allegation and personal attack. Don't. Keep it brief, 2 or 3 sentences max. If you can't keep it brief, show it to a colleague, let them brief it out a little bit more, and it'll show you where you're emotionally hooked. Okay. So you just keep it brief. Keep it informative, very straight factual information. Like I said, you don't have to defend yourself against the personal attacks. If there's something that needs to be set straight, like set the record straight, respond with those straight facts, and that's it. Don't focus on opinions or blame or try and give them insight about their lousy attitude. Then it just starts the whole thing again when they've already moved on. Keep it friendly, which can be really hard to do when you're feeling attacked or feeling, defensive and just being human. So just, dear Susie, dear John, whatever. Thank you for your letter. Thank you for your email, whatever. Thank you for sending this. 2 sentences, kindly, sincerely. Just keep it friendly. Friendly tone. You don't have to be over the top or not yourself, but just, keep all the other garbage out of it. And keep it firm. And this doesn't mean being aggressive. It just means you're going to close the conversation without raising defensiveness or making someone feel really triggered about being abandoned. Like firm doesn't mean never write to me again, you idiot. Right? It's more about this brings the matter to a close, or, I suppose this takes care of this matter. Sincerely, Jessica. All right. There's a lot more about that if we can talk about that later in a book called BIF. Avoid the 3 A's. So you want to avoid in your BIF responses in any email, text, message, whatever. Avoid admonishments because it's just not going to work. It's going to blow up. They'll take it as a personal attack because they're feeling highly criticized and sensitive anyway. Don't give advice because they're not asking for it, and that's just going to keep conflict escalating. And then avoid apologies also. That's the third A. Because, like if you've done something you need to apologize for, then it's okay to apologize. But mostly these, messages that are full of personal attacks and blame and things are, it can, for some people, we might instantly go, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry this happened. I'm sorry I did that. I apologize. But you're just doing that kind of out of walking on eggshells. And what it does is it validates that they're all or nothing thinking, their blame, all of that is okay. And that's, you don't want to do that. So just check your BIFs anytime with brief, informative, friendly, and firm. And then does it have advice, apologies, or admonishments? Clean it up and you'll be back to about 2 sentences. Okay, so now we're going to go to taking care of you. All right. I would imagine you guys might be feeling a little worn out and maybe traumatized, have some PTSD, some vicarious trauma, a lot of things going on. I have to say, today I felt a little grim, just from everything that's going on in the world and the things you're hearing on the news. And, I get a little obsessive about checking the counts and things like that. And it can start to be a little bit overwhelming. And so we really have to, structure our days and, talk about some of that in a minute. But let's first talk about, when you're really working with really difficult people during difficult times, you're just going to have to be more aware daily of, reminding yourself that this is a different time, and I have to be mindful that people are going to be more anxious, and so I'm going to have to do better today. I'm going to have to do better tomorrow than I usually do. I'm going to have to, even when I don't feel like it, I've got to do a little bit better. And so remind yourself of that, even if you have to make a list and check it every morning, just to remind yourself to use EAR, to use BIF, to keep an arm's length relationship with anyone who's sort of exhibiting these behaviors. You might feel kind of pulled in right now during this time, but you can still have compassion and empathy without getting too close. Remind yourself that when someone's yelling and they're behaving very badly, and they might blame you, just don't take it personally. It can be hard to do, right? But it's not about you. It's about their long-standing chronic pattern of behavior, and it's that. Just remind yourself, it's the amygdala, maybe, and that can kind of help. Managing your own anxiety by avoiding being too directive with people or too passive. Just try to stay with them as they go up and down that roller coaster, right? And you're on a journey beside them instead of trying to fix them or avoid them. Take a no blame and no shame approach. Pretty critical, all right? These are folks that already feel blamed and shamed, so avoid that. Avoid being a hero or feeling too guilty, right? We might, if you do those things, you're getting out of the structure of working with sort of these behaviors. So now let's talk about taking care of you. Take a break, take a nap. I took a nap yesterday, felt great. I took a little break today. Build a routine into your day. We're working from home now. I've worked from home for 13 years, so I'm kind of used to it. In fact, my daily norm is not to do my hair nice and put my makeup on, but I did for you guys tonight, and even put, it's my nighttime. I put some nice clothes on. But back to routine, you just gonna have to learn to put routine in your day if you're not used to it. That is all of this is a change for us. And when we have change, I liken change to the stages of grief, where it's, kind of Shock and denial. I think we probably have been through that or going through that. Anger, all those things. Well, it's kind of the same with the stages of change we're in. So it's making us all feel a little unsettled. So just acknowledge that, build routine into your day, set some goals, keep notes, stay connected with colleagues. Somebody's asking, does it help to acknowledge or name that someone seems triggered? I'm supposed to wait till the end for questions. I keep forgetting. I'll come back to you, Catherine. So staying connected with colleagues and family. It seems like we're doing a pretty good job with that around the world right now. People singing together in their neighborhoods and displaying flags and playing trumpets and whatever, Facebook, doing, some crazy cool stuff and be a part of it. Like last night I was thinking, I should tell the guys on, all of you tonight that we should just have a big dance party and put on some ABBA, some AC/DC, some, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and just dance all at the same time. We may still do it. I'll let you know. Give yourself encouraging statements. Hey, I got through such and such in the past and I can do it again. Self-talk, right? Get outside, exercise. I need to take my own medicine on that. Sing and dance. I have a nice piano out in my living room. I should be playing it more. I have been playing a lot more music when I start to feel like things are kind of ick right now. I put on actually a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire. It just makes me feel happy. Talk to a helper if you need to, see a therapist, call a therapist. Oh, don't see a therapist, just call. And then, you may feel like you fail along the way here once in a while. You may be feeling your own anxiety and then you're working with someone really difficult and you react wrongly, or you don't do quite the VIF response you thought you should, and things got out of control. You know what? We all mess up. We all fail. Move on. It's all about next. What's next? Okay. You don't want to get stuck in the past because that's what really difficult people do, right? It's always stuck in the past. And some of us may be tempted right now to get stuck in this past thinking or feeling, or stuck in where we are. And you want to avoid that, and then don't beat yourself up about it. We're in a different time, period. So it's okay. I put a little, I'll be curious if any of you read this on the slides. If you go in and look at them later, I put something called Empowerment Script, which is written by one of your fellow Aussies named Lowen Clark from Maryborough, Victoria, where I was in November. And he discovered that the ancient Greeks used to write back and forth. And when Lowen discovered it, he kind of figured it out and he started using it. He realized that his breathing changed. His heart rate slowed down. He felt calmer. And I think it's because of the flow going back and forth, because the writing goes from one side to the other and you go back and forth. Now, it may seem a little intimidating or that it would be stressful, but after about 10 minutes, it became very normal for me. I felt so much calm. I was hyper-focused and felt some tears at one point, even though the content wasn't anything, emotional. So I think there's little breakthroughs. It's really fascinating stuff. So he wrote a little piece for us about the virus. And then he's written this book called Sam the Trans Dance Club, and it's a kid's book, and it does the back and forth. A lot of trauma therapists are using it with trauma kids. So that's on there. That's a good self-care thing. And then for those of you that are looking at the slides, someone said play games or clean the entire house. Yes, I've been doing that lately too. I get it. So on that last slide, it says every day strive to look like this, and it's a happy face emoji, right? We're gonna get through all of this. You guys have been through worse. We've all been through some pretty tough stuff. Working with difficult people can be pretty tough too, especially in difficult times, but stick with these structured approaches and I think you'll have some success and you'll feel more confident and you'll just feel calmer. All right. So I hope you found some missing piece with this. And I really, we're going to go into questions here, and I'm 6 minutes behind, but I will take a look. Let me get on my little messages from Shiv. All right. Oh, I want to introduce you to Shiv, by the way. So I mentioned to you that we started our branch in High Conflict Institute, Australia. We don't have an office there or anything. It's just we have a presence there, right? And so we have this lovely young woman named Shiv Martin, and I printed her picture out tonight. Hi, Shiv. She's very lovely person, lives in Brisbane, and is a lawyer and just very sharp. And so if you ever have questions, go onto that page, the FLPN follow-up page, and you'll have access to her there. There's tons of stuff on that page. I put some co-parenting resources, like there's a co-parenting course that we made for Australia, and with that kind of goes with your laws and everything and your customs, and the you in behavior, those types of things. So just, it's loaded with resources. So go ahead and go there. All right. And give Shiv a hello. Sign up for our newsletter if you want to hear from us again. We have lots of books, lots of webinars, stuff like that. Okay, someone's asking about tips for working over the phone. So this is a really good question because you don't have that in-person Miggy to Miggy stuff going on. So I've been training some customer service agents lately who do both phone and chat. So, you know, you've kind of got a different dynamic going there somewhat. And so I would say focus more on using empathy, attention, and respect in your words, keeping your voice calm, letting people talk, just kind of letting it run a little bit. Back in my very first job out of college, I had to answer the phone right after a new law was passed that required farmers who had been dumping garbage on their farms forever to now have to bring the garbage to town to dump it and pay $8 for the privilege, $8 a month for the privilege to do so. And they all got bills in the mail, and I started answering the phone. I learned a lot about dealing with people over the phone. Sometimes I just let them run, and you know, they would expect me to argue back. Just don't argue back. Don't offer lots of explanations. Stick with straight factual information. You know, make sure you keep your tone of voice calm. You can set boundaries, set limits. We didn't even talk tonight about limit setting, which is, you know, just as critical as using ear and using BIF. It's just really hard to fit it in an hour. But setting limits is super, super helpful. So if you're with someone on the phone and it's an appointment, you can kind of set it up in advance. The more you do in advance with any difficult people, the better. You lay the structure, you lay the framework. If you're doing a mediation, you lay the framework at the beginning, how it's going to go, So I hope that helps. Just really watching your tone of voice, use ear, and see if that helps. All right. Okay. And let me know on the chat if that helps. I'm trying to think for a second about phone. If someone's really railing against you, is it okay to ask them to stop? It's okay. Sometimes people need those boundaries, and you can kind of use your judgment on whether, you know, you need to let someone run a little bit so that so you can get someone, you know, let them run it out and you can get somewhere with them later. But if they're being, you know, hurling obscenities and being super, you know, disrespectful, you know, that's not okay. And you can say, you know what, I think this will, you know, we can try this another time when things are going a little bit better. That's okay to do. Now, I don't know if you're in a job where you're required, like if you work in the ombudsman's office or something, you may be required to do that. And when, to stay on the phone. And if you are, then, you just have to use more ear. And just always tie stuff back to the fear, and remember how to get people calm, and then get them thinking, what ideas have you tried? What solutions have you tried? Have you called the company to get the bill? Whatever the case may be. I hope that helped. Any tips for mediating via Zoom? Yeah, so Shiv is going to do a webinar on mediating virtually. And I've heard quite a bit here in the States about people doing a lot of mediation by Zoom just in the last month, and having a lot of success with it, because there's like no animosity in the room, because you're not in a room together. So, with Zoom, you can put people in different rooms, and it seems, from what I've heard, it's working really well. So you just, I think you just use kind of this. Let me give you a little tip on mediation with high conflict behaviored people. You want it to be really structured, and you want to get them used to you being in charge, which you probably know as a mediator. But with sort of this, these 4 characteristics: all or nothing thinking, unmanaged emotions, extreme behaviors, blaming, they're really amped up when they come to that mediation, right? So you get it structured and get them used to making proposals, asking questions, and responding to proposals. There's a ton about this on our website, and I'm sure Shiv will be talking about it in her webinar, but it's a really brilliant method we call New Ways for Mediation. And if you keep them in that structure of, so what's your proposal? Let the other person ask questions about it, and then ask them, is that a yes, no, or I'll think about it. And they get used to this process, this structure, and they start to feel safer in it, the longer they're in it. So that's just a tiny little bit about structuring mediation. Does it help to acknowledge or name that someone seems triggered, or that they might be feeling unsafe, or name the fears? The only word there I wouldn't use is triggered, and I don't think you meant to use that word, but to kind of acknowledge that they might be a little upset or uncomfortable. I think it is. I think it's okay to say, you seem a little upset right now, and I get it. I might feel the same way if I was in your shoes. And they may feel some real relief from that, because what you gave them was empathy. What you gave them was attention. You gave them some, acknowledgement that they're upset, right? And they're triggered. Do you want to take a break? Would you like to, have a few minutes? Something like that. All right, what else do we have here? Someone's saying, I understand Zoom has already tightened up their security issues. Yeah, I've heard that too. And there's, they said, always make sure that the host, there's only one host, and that the host is the only one that can share the screen, or set the meeting to private, something like that. Sounds like people have had some good things with being on the phone. Other questions, you guys? I'm looking through the chats and seeing tone of speech, tempo of speech is also important on the phone, not to go too fast. Yeah, because you think about if someone's really upset, and that right brain's on fire, and you're going too fast, you're moving ahead, right? They're still stuck over here in this reactionary brain, and you're saying, hey, you need to be over here. They can't get there yet. So you got to spend a little time slowing things down, giving people a break, slowing the tempo, like this person said, David. Let's see. I think that's all the questions we have. So I'm really grateful that you were on with me today, and I want to thank Family Law Pathways Network, number one, for inviting me to do this webinar both today and on the 7th. It was really a great experience for me. As you heard in the beginning, I love Australia. I love Family Law Pathways Network because I've been all over Australia because of you guys. So very grateful to all of you for being here, to FLPN, to Adam, who set this up in Sydney, to Stephanie out in Alice Springs, who helped, and to Shiv, who has done a tremendous amount of work to get this going. Everybody stay safe. Don't touch your face. And I had a question. Are you wearing pants? I hope that was funny. At least it is here in the States. I would assume that you guys are doing the same thing with Zoom, like, are you wearing pants? Because we're also working at home. So anyway, if there aren't any more questions, I'm taking one last look. Keith Roberts says, if in doubt, use empathy. Absolutely. Empathy is king. Miggy loves empathy. So, oh look, yes, wearing shorts. Yep, people are wearing pants. That's good. I'm wearing pants. I can show you black pants. All right, so I will be back in Australia, hopefully in November, December. I was supposed to be there for the entire month of May, doing a tour, and was going to do a TEDx talk in Melbourne on my Dating Radar book. But that got, postponed to December. So I'll be back. I hope to see you guys there. Somebody's wearing a dress, and pants are not optional. Oh boy. Anyway, I guess that's it. We're going to say goodbye, say goodnight. For me, I'm going to bed, and be in touch. Connect with me on LinkedIn and go on our website so you can see where we're going to be in Australia, and I'd love to see you there. So if you ever have questions, let me know too. Okay? All right, guys. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.